I'm here. I got one tooth. Let's get into it.
Action!
Hey, let's talk about the DJI Inspire 3, which is what I'm holding in my hands gently and with delicacy, although this is a very burly drone and is very tough. So, most of you, if you're watching an Inspire 3 review video, probably pretty familiar with the Inspire lineup. It is not the full-on Matrix, I will fly heavy stuff, I will fly an Alexa. It's not like the Mavic, which is the thing most people end up owning, or like the DJI Mavic Air or whatever. It's like, prosumer is a bad term, but it's the like $15,000 to $20,000 but amazing video quality drone, but integrated, right? So I've got the thing hanging here because it hangs below by patent, and the recorder's up here by patent. It can do ProRes RAW without violating the red patent because it's an external camera, which is how they get around ProRes RAW. So it's one of the ProRes RAW units, but you can shoot a whole bunch of crazy stuff to it, up to these little DJI SSD cards. It shoots 8K. Oh, I'm missing a tooth, by the way. It'll be fixed soon. It shoots to 8K. It has a full frame sensor. It shoots to 8K. It has a full frame sensor. The big thing that a DP who's not going to buy one should understand is that if you look at this, you're not going to see the familiar unit from the 4D. This is the Zenmuse Air. This is not the same Zenmuse as the 4D. The 4D has a little rod where you can route an external motor. The 4D can handle a little bit more weight. But the external motor is what is key. The first thing I think every DP or renter, you're probably not going to rent one of these, you're probably going to hire someone who owns one. But the big thing that someone who's going to rent one or work with someone should know is this is really designed for DJI lenses, which are very nice lenses. We've all reviewed them. They're all very nice lenses. However, the excitement some of us had is the Ronin 40 came out. The Ronin 40 lets you shoot other lenses. And there's a whole bunch of like modern stuff that all looks like very nice. Not that much different than the DJI. The Zeiss Batis are really great. Or you can go for the DJI, not the Sigma, but the not Sigma Contemporary Compact or something. I don't remember the name. It's in my review. Great lenses. Love them. They're sort of my default. However, what I usually shoot on the 4D is I get like vintage 70s still lenses because there's an autofocus system built in and there's the rod built in and there's all that built in. And when I first heard about the Inspire 3, I was like, shit, can I fly like 70s FD lenses on this? You can't. That is not what it is designed for. The Air doesn't have the interchangeable lens mount. You can't put in the Sony E, which is then what you adapt to the Canon FD. I understand why DJI does this because, frankly, I wouldn't probably want to make a thing that flew those vintage lenses with that weird motor on the outside up through the sky. Like, I get it. I understand. But I really wish someone, please, start a company buying cool 70s and 80s still lenses and rehousing them to fly on the Zenmuse Air. Because I love the DJI lenses. They're great. Totally happy. But they're very modern and clean. And, you know, as most of us know, the thing we want when we're shooting is sauce. We want a little flavor. And lenses will give us that flavor. And, you know, 90% of what I've shot on the 4D has either been like, oh, anamorphics or Canon FDs or something to get that flavor to match other lenses. And we don't have that. Let's actually go back to number 0. Number 0, incredibly beautiful 4K, 8K footage from this camera. You're seeing some slow-mo stuff here. Really nice dynamic range, big surprise. We've been seeing that in these drones for a while. Beautiful, like 8K, beautiful resolution, reasonably good low light. I like the 5000 ISO. It's not too noisy. Okay, so I said before, resolution, that's table stakes. Is resolution table stakes? Let's figure it out. So here we're looking at, this is all 1080. I'm aware, you know, the way my OBS works, we're going to look at this in 1080 and it's going to be life and it's going to be okay. So I'm punching in here. This is 100% resolution, right? 100%, so it's an 8K. It's down to 1080. It looks quite nice. I'm going to just pause when I get up there. So 200%, I still think it looks really nice. And I'm going to be real. I'm going to go into 300% here. So this is 300%. look at all the detail you're still getting on those buildings. Like, yes, 300%. There's like drawbacks. You are seeing stuff. It's like part of life. Fine, whatever. But I tell you what, at 300%, all those details I'm getting on those windows, all those details I'm getting up there. So this 8K, if you're finishing 1920 by 1080, which like if you're still delivering to network, you are, or if you're finishing 38, if you're finishing Ultra HD, which you're delivering to streamer, you're delivering. I mean, if you're delivering 8K, good for you. But like, I just don't end up doing that very much. But this 8K capture really gives you so much punch-in range, where I'm looking at this like very nice looking punch-in. Like this is 300%. This is that shot, right? So this is the shot. Look at that. And then I'm able to get away with punching all the fuck way in here before it falls apart. So 300%, 400%, 500%, 600%. Yeah, all right, 600%. I'm seeing stuff. It's falling apart, right? I'm seeing all the artifacting, and I'm maybe reaching limits of the lens as much as the sensor. But like for 1920 by 1080 deliverable, you'd have plenty of room for 300%. You'd definitely get 200, 250% for a 4K deliverable. Like this is, resolution's real stuff, guys. The resolution's real stuff. And then, you know, we're looking out here. I got an overcast day. One bummer about this, I never really, I'm going to blame user error, I never really got two shots to line up perfectly in post. I'm going to talk later in the review about like the beauty of you can shoot a daytime and a nighttime. I shot this location a bunch. I had a shot. I never really got them to line up. But you're watching this dusk shot here. You've got this amazing detail. The dynamic range really starts to pop later. Like you've got shots like this where, you know, I've got my windows on, but they're not blowing out down there in my windows. And I've got my skyline back there in the background. I've got sky, and like, it just looks nice. It doesn't look overly crunched in the shadows. It doesn't look overly burnt in those burnouts. It's one of those shots where you're like, yeah, okay. I see what you're doing there with that sensor. It's funny, I rewatched a movie from a decade ago recently, shot on the Red MX, and I'd forgotten how contrasty that sensor was when it first came out. And that was the Mysterium X, that was the second red sensor, but it was still just like not giving us what we're now getting out of a camera that like isn't even designed as an A-cam, although it kind of is because of the 4D. But yeah, look at that. And then some of this really beautiful stuff, you know, shooting up. We've got the sources in frame. We've got these spotlights in frame. We have the glowing towers in frame. We've got in the lower left, that guard tower in frame. And even the burnout, it's not really bothering me. It's there. But the dynamic range you're getting out of this camera for this low light night stuff, it's ridiculous. This camera, independent, as we see with the 4D, without the stabilization, would still be sort of an impressive animal. And then once you start throwing in the fact that this flies, even better. So this is I'm going to show you guys my one attempt. I could never get the shots to line up right. Taking the two shots, putting them together, lining them up. I kept trying. I couldn't quite do it. I tried a whole bunch of times. Now, I'm not a compositor. Maybe these two shots are going to be close enough that a compositor could totally go in and make it so that this transition is like a beautiful transition. And everybody's like, ooh, it's so nice. It is entirely possible. It doesn't do that thing where the shots are just so close you don't have to futz around. I suspect part of the reason why is wind. I looked at some of the sample shots on like the DJI website, and they look like pretty windless days. You know, I'm on the East River. I'm getting wind off the river. It was pretty windy, and so the shots didn't line up quite perfectly as you see. You see there's a little drift. It's okay. It's still a beautiful shot. The shots are pretty darn close to each other. It's not perfection. I wonder if also it was the distance to the RTK base station, or if maybe you could attach multiple RTKs together. We will talk more about the features that led to that shot, which again, let's do it a second time. Let's make it look a little further apart from each other. Just throw a quick little, just something on it so it looks a little bit more daytimey. Let's fake a little schmutz on there real quick so that we got a little something so that we're like, okay, so that feels a little bit more like fake daytime. We're just going to watch this transition again. Now, can one of you out there, if I drop the dailies in a Dropbox, make these two shots match together perfectly? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not world's best compositor. I tried to line it up as best I could, and I never quite did. I sort of watched through all my takes, and everyone danced a little bit with the other. Again, wind. So I think that there's a universe where you could do this. I put the repeating shot feature of RTK currently in the I wouldn't bid it to a client yet. But the 3D dolly shot, I would absolutely put to a client. Now let's go back to talking about those in a little bit more detail. Like, it's weird, but that's all table stakes now. Like 5 years ago, I'd be like, oh my God, this looks so good. And it does look good. But there's all sorts of other cool stuff to talk about. So like, it looks great. Done. We don't get our cool, weird lenses. I wish somebody, I'll work with you. That every DP and director should be aware of when you're thinking about this is this guy. This is the DJI RTK2, the D-RTK2. You can see a photo here of it standing in what looks like a surveyor's tripod. This is where all of the magic sauce comes in with this drone. This is what makes this drone super fun. What this does, GPS is accurate to about a meter, which is like fine for a lot of tasks. We've been flying drones with GPS for a long time. But with accuracy to like a meter or so, you're not going to get really close to shit and trust your GPS. So if I'm doing a shot where I'm like wiping in front of something, I have to be really paying attention. I have to be totally on it. I have to be completely focused. And you're not going to be able to like save that shot and replay it with just GPS. It's not accurate enough. But this is RTK. I don't really understand RTK. I read 3 articles on it. Here's what I'm about to tell you is wrong, but the easiest way to remember it. It adds a second antenna and makes your GPS more accurate. There's all sorts of stuff beyond that. But by adding a second GPS antenna that you stand out somewhere, you've got the GPS antenna built in the drone and the GPS antenna in the RTK, and they work together to triangulate because they're, it's 2 different angles on the satellites. Is that true? Is that not true? It doesn't matter. Just remember, RTK gives me more accuracy with GPS. And what does more accuracy with GPS do? It does 2 cool as shit things. The first is 3D dolly. 3D dolly lets you pre-program a move, like this move here, pre-programmed. It's a pre-programmed move. It's built in the thing. And then, when I do a shot, I can only move the camera on that path. If the actor moves a little more slowly, I can still control it with the remote controller, but I can make it go a little more slowly because the actor's moving more slowly. Or if the actor like stops, forgets a line, I can slow to a stop, and then they keep going, I keep going. Now, why is this so cool? I know that plenty of experienced drone ops are like, well, yeah, sure, but you could do something similar by just really paying attention and being good. But the problem is there's so many axes of movement in a drone. Even if you've got because the Inspire3 will let you have 2 controllers. The Inspire3, the third cool thing the Inspire3 does is it works with the video receivers from the 4D that give you an SDI and HDMI out that can then feed into your full wireless preview system. So now you can have a director's monitor, a client monitor. I'm excited about the Inspire3 for client work. But going back to RTK, what's exciting about RTK is with 3D dolly, you can lock yourself in space. And it's the difference of doing a handheld shot versus being on a dolly. When you're on a dolly, your key grip stops worrying about left to right because you're on that dolly track. So your key grip can turn off that part of their brain and apply more of their brain to watching the actors and moving the dolly just along the space. And I only played with 3D dolly a little bit. I didn't get to use it on a narrative job, but just immediately practicing it, the joy of, I pre-programmed the shot, and sure, I'm going a little close to the flag, or I'm going a little close to that building, or I'm getting a little close to this thing. You often want to get close. You want to sweep past something to get that parallax, to get that cool thing. The ability to do that and not worry as much about hitting the thing because you programmed it not to hit the thing and you're just moving it back and forth on the track, that is super cool as shit. So I think 3D dolly is going to be a big feature. The other thing you can do is you can do waypoint where you map out a shot and then it can repeat it using RTX. Now, you want to take a photo of where you're putting the RTX thing and you want to be very precise on your RTX placement, but I redid shots. I mapped out a shot and then I just played it again and then I played it again and then I went back a few hours later when the light was different and I played it again, and you can just cut them together in post. Probably less relevant in narrative, more of a documentary action sports thing. I can imagine a shot where I'm doing an establishing shot of a city and it morphs from day into night in a drone. Not going to happen too often. A lot in documentary, a lot in narrative. I mean, there's a project I've been working on for a long time, you know, about climate change, and I would love to be able to reshoot a drone shot of the coastline year after year after year. There's still some hiccups to figure out about like how savable these things are. Like, I really want them to be able to go to the DJI cloud and save to there and save to my card, and that's all working out. So that's the cool stuff. What's the drawback to RTK? Gonna be honest, it took me a couple times to get it working, and the reason why is because there's a little thing it says in the instructions, open field, and I didn't take it seriously enough. I was in like a field next to a building, but I was like close to a building. And then the second place I tried, I was in like a big open parking lot, but I just, because there was a physical marker there, I put it right next to a light post. I finally really got it working when I went open field. I think it needs to point at a lot of the satellites or whatnot. So I finally, when I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna be 15 feet from light posts, I'm going to be 30 feet from buildings, I'm going to be in a field. It worked like a snap. It just fired up, it connected. Once you're in the habit and the rhythm of it, it works great. I think if you're a freelancer or if you're thinking about hiring people and you're planning a shot that's going to depend on this, I would recommend a test day. I would recommend this. I don't feel like RTK is yet to the point where you're like, okay, we have this cool shot, and we're going to use RTK so we can do 3D dolly for this one stunt, and we're just going to book them to show up on the day. I would hire the drone up for a test day to make sure that RTK works in the location. I've had things where I was in an open field and I had to move the RTK home point to a couple different spots until it found one it liked. That's the kind of thing you don't want to do with the pressure of a ticking recording clock. So you want to be conscious of that. I would try and plan it out ahead of time, absolutely. I think that it's a beautiful tool, but those are the things I really walked away from thinking. It's one of those exciting new things where you immediately have it and you're like, you start thinking about all the things that you can do with it. And you start thinking about, and you know, if you've been around long enough, you start thinking about shots that you did in the past where you're like, I could have used this then. So those are the big headlines for me right now with this. RTK is amazing. It only flies the DJI lenses, but that's okay. And it would be nice if somebody would get weird with the lenses, but we'll get there when we get there. The footage is just astounding. Incredibly fast, incredibly beautiful footage, and it is starting to take us to a place where we are doing more interesting things on top of that. I'm very excited to have gotten to play with the i3. It was a little frustrating getting RTK to work, but then once I got it to work, I felt like I understood a little bit better how I would integrate it in future productions. So that is DJI Inspire 3. You should like or subscribe, but I don't make videos very often, let's be real.